We're chatting with Karina Brown, who is the Democratic candidate for Lieutenant Governor in the state of Utah this year. Karina, how you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for hosting me.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming down. I know you live up in Cache County, and so it's a little bit of a trek coming down Sardine Canyon to Weber County, but we appreciate you. So we did an interview with your running mate Chris Peterson on Wednesday. That's yet to be published in the Junction City podcast. But in that interview, he mentioned the fact that you're a planning commissioner in what city up in Cache County?
In Nibley.
Nibley, yeah. And so I was gonna say Nibley, but I didn't want to get the wrong one because sometimes there are like city rivalries, and it's like, no, man, that's not my city. How dare you? But up in Nibley, and so you were just mentioning to me off camera that recently, as a planning commissioner, you were able to pass this ordinance allowing for accessory dwellings, kind of help with housing in the area. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I've been with the Planning Commission for several months, but when I first got started, I shared with my fellow planning and zoning commissioners that I really would like to see an accessory dwelling unit ordinance in Nibley. And so we've been working on that over the past several months, and it's now passed through our Planning and Zoning Commission to have an accessory dwelling unit ordinance to increase the availability of housing.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I'll tell you, my wife and I, we're millennials and we carry a fair bit of student debt. And so one of the things we've struggled with is qualifying for housing. We have this ceiling. And so we seriously looked at things like tiny homes in Ogden, and I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember, but usually cities would pass ordinances like these in order to allow people to build tiny homes in the backyard. So there was already a main dwelling, and then you would build this thing in the backyard. And so we thought about that seriously as an option.
We went and visited Moab several weekends ago and spoke with several community members, and one gentleman who's in real estate told me about a tiny home development going up in Moab. They haven't even broken ground yet, and they're already sold out.
Wow.
So that's really exciting. I think creative housing like that is important. I toured the Borden Lofts in Logan recently, and they converted an old historic, built in 1900 building that was a Borden milk plant into apartments.
Really?
And it's really cool, really modern, catering, I think, to the younger generation, right next to public transportation, shopping and everything. So that's really cool, using historic preservation also to help housing.
It is really cool because I was watching a show and they had this city market in their city, and it was basically the same idea. They had taken an old warehouse, converted it into this space where they had all these food vendors, and so it's cool to see them using old architecture like that in new ways to kind of modernize. I also want to ask you about, you and Chris had an event with students for Joe Biden here in the state of Utah. I think that was on Tuesday this week, right? Yeah, how did that go? I mean, what was it like interacting with some of those young people who were excited about politics in Utah?
Well, I started out my remarks sharing a quote from Chadwick Boseman saying, star of the Black Panther, saying, "Youth of America, we need you to get out and vote, you can change the world." And so I really believe that. They had some great questions. The young people of today are so smart, so concerned about social justice issues, climate change, and more interested in peace and, I think, love for humanity than making money. And so I'm really excited to see what this younger generation will do and how they will change the world. But we had a great conversation with them. They asked us all kinds of questions, and it was really exciting to hear from them. And I saw several of them this morning in Cache County for our Meet the Candidates event in front of the courthouse. So some of them came by to say hi in person. So that was cool.
Oh, is that right? So you guys have already done an event today, this morning?
Yeah.
Holy cow, your day is busy.
Yeah.
That is great.
So, yeah.
The last thing I wanted to ask about was, so you've been it's a statewide campaign. You've been traveling all over the state. You're here in Weber County today. Kind of what has that been like for you all, traveling throughout the state, hearing lots of different perspectives? Because we've got a lot of different ways of life, I guess I would say, in Utah. There's rural, there's urban. Talk about that kind of diversity of thought as you've traveled across the state.
Well, I have observed that the more rural areas, of course, are more conservative. We were in St. George last weekend, and our waitress at Denny's said, "You have a lot of guts coming down."
It takes work.
But, I think there's some of the same things that we are concerned about. Housing, of course, is important in Moab, in St. George. I'm hearing the same thing in Cache County. That's a real issue. Economic development, economic growth. It's important to have more opportunities spread to the rural parts of Utah. So that is important. And that quality of life. life, balancing growth with maintaining the maybe the small town atmosphere. I think sometimes communities are concerned about that too. So I think we have more in common than we have differences. So that's been good to see.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds like a lot of the same issues that are in play here in maybe the eastern part of Weber County, which is more urban. You hear a lot of those same issues on the western part of Weber County, which is more rural, and that's sort of a dichotomy or a microcosm of really what the state is like, where a lot of people are concerned about a lot of the same issues. So, I guess kind of nice for you guys because it's like, hey, we've heard about this before.
Yeah, it's good. I spoke with one voter in depth several weeks ago who's concerned about housing too. Lives in South Salt Lake. Would like to see more lower priced housing for people to buy. And so that's something that we're thinking about too. So.
We're definitely concerned about it here in Weber County, and we appreciate you coming down. I know you're a busy person, and so thanks for coming down to the Northern Utah Dems picnic today at Fort Buenaventura. Really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you so much.